Cheers and welcome to Irondale Brewing. I am fresh back from BrewTubers Brew Union in Asheville, North Carolina. It was just absolutely fantastic to meet all the BrewTubers members in person, all the ones that could make it anyway, and share some beers, share some thoughts about beers, and just share a good time, good weekend in a great town of Asheville. I had not been before. It is a very welcoming place with an absolutely fantastic beer scene. So if you've not been to Asheville and you can make that happen, highly recommended. Probably the best experience while I was there was the Sierra Nevada Brewery Tour. Just the scope and scale and of that whole operation is just mind-blowing. And the beers are just fantastic. And if you go there, you can have some Sierra Nevada beers that they don't distribute and are kind of limited run things. Yeah, it's just, I can't recommend that highly enough. So, or you can go to Chico too, but the one in Nashville is pretty fantastic. So, but on with today's video, we're going to talk Oktoberfest. And I brewed an Oktoberfest a while ago, finally getting around to tasting. It's been in the keg for about 3 weeks. If you're watching this, you probably know what an Oktoberfest is, but this is the one I made. There are some variants in the style, but the one I made was kind of the Märzen style, and it gets that name from the German word for March. Historically, they were brewed in March and then tapped in October at Oktoberfest. I'm a little bit past Oktoberfest by the time I'm making this video, but the beer is finally ready. This one, I'll save the discussion until the end. It did not, there were some things that didn't go as well as I'd like, but as I've said before, I think it's important to kind of honestly evaluate the beers and talk about what went sideways in this case, and do better next time. Anyway, I'll save the rest for the tasting. But what this should be, style-wise, if you're not super familiar with Oktoberfest or haven't partaken of many, is it's meant to be kind of a malty, bready, I won't say sweet, at least the ones that I've had that I like, and there are a lot out there, especially this time of year. You can probably go find half a dozen in any pretty well-stocked beer store. And there are variants, but it's, an amber colored, not super hoppy, more malt forward, but to me shouldn't be sweet, but shouldn't finish too dry either. It's just kind of meant to be an easy drinking for, a festival like Oktoberfest. But emphasis again on the malty, bready side of things. Low IBUs, I'm just looking at the BJCP style here of 20 to 28. And an ABV of from 4.8 to 5.7. I think the recipe, as I was intending to make it, was going to be around 6, a little bit higher, so a little bit over the limit for the style according to Oktoberfest, or according to BJCP. I took my recipe from Brewing Classic Styles. I had never made an Oktoberfest, or I think I have made an Oktoberfest from kits before, but I never made one from scratch. So as with a lot of these types of recipes, I tend to gravitate towards that book because it's a great place to start. Is it going to be the beer that I would want to make? I don't know, but that is the best place to start to get a baseline, and then hey, next time I want this to be more this or less this or whatever. So that's where the recipe came from. I kind of go over the recipe in the Brew Day video. The Brew Day video is short because I came out early one morning. I'm like, I'll just mill the grains so I'm ready to brew the thing. I'll just put the water in there and I'll brew tomorrow. And then I just kind of kept going and ended up brewing the whole beer. So I didn't really plan ahead for kind of getting things set up for filming. So I was kind of doing it all on my phone. Very ad hoc, but it'll give you a sense of how the brew day went. First use of the steam condenser lid. We'll talk about how that went. And I don't know what else to say. We'll probably save the rest for the tasting. So here for your enjoyment is a few minutes of brew day footage of the Oktoberfest.
Here we see the grains for this Oktoberfest. I went with 38.2% Pilsner, 30.8% Munich 1, 23.4% Vienna, and 7.7% Caramel Munich 60 Lovibond. Smashing at 152. You can see I'm a little bit high here because I have not started recirculating yet. Things are still getting settled in. For hops, all Hallertauer Mittelfrüh, 15.6 IBU at 60, another 7.5 at 20 minutes for a total IBU of 23. And for the yeast, I went with 2 packets of Cellar Science Berlin. From what I read, said you should use 2 packets of that for even a 5-gallon batch. So that's what I did. Fermented at 52 Fahrenheit until it hit a gravity of 1014, and then did a diacetyl rest at 58 for 3 days, and that kept it within the temperature range. Didn't get too high. It's pretty low temperature range on that yeast. Targets for the OG, I was looking for 1056, final gravity of 1010 for an ABV of 6.2. We'll see if I hit that or not later in the video. This is my first brew that I did with the steam condenser lid, so here we see it in action. Overall, I was happy with this. I was still draining into a bucket because I did not get my act together to get a hose going into my floor drain. It's a little bit of a last minute, just decided to brew on a given day. But overall, that thing works really well. And here we can see, I'm just zooming in to show you get a boil at about 60 or 65% power, which is pretty slick. Yeah, so I was, and I'm really going to like it now that the weather's getting colder. I won't have to open windows and whatnot, and can still brew. Here we see what went wrong. I did not let the hot break happen before I put the steam condenser lid on. Even though the hops were in muslin bags, we see something happened, made quite a mess. So all those hops that went up into the lid and so on, they didn't get so bad as to be coming out the other end, but not great that all that hot matter was not in the beer during the brew. We'll see in the tasting how this all panned out. But overall, it wasn't too bad to clean up, even though it was a much bigger mess than I usually have. And for the chilling, I was looking to get it colder than this, but my groundwater was such that this was as cold it was going to get. So I put it in the fermenter and chilled it down in the fermentation chamber before pitching. And the best part that I didn't get on video is I whirlpool as I was chilling. When I was done chilling, I took the whirlpool arm off while the pump was still running and got a geyser of beer in my hair. So that would have been fun to have on video, but alas, it is unfortunately not available. Would have been funny, but... and then I think the next part, I'm showing the CIP ball that I got from, or I don't know what they call that thing, that red part. I have had it for quite a while, but I figured this was a good opportunity to actually try it. Nice thing is it works really well, and you can use a lot less water and clean your BrewZilla pretty thoroughly. I got all the chunks off before I ran that thing, but worked well. We're about 50% done with fermentation. It's been about 5 days, I think. So this yeast, it's lager yeast, and it's fermenting cold at 52, so it's not going to be super fast, but it's going nice and steady. I'll put a chart up as part of the video too, so you can see kind of the progress. It's looking pretty good, just a little bit of light corrosion on the top there. You can see, and I've been keeping it about under 5 psi. Not real pressure, but you don't want those things wide open either, because then it's just open. It's not as effective as an airlock, from what I understand. So anyway, that's where we are. 50% done after 5 days, and chugging along nicely. And after it hits gravity about 10-14, then the fermentation profile is set up to do the diacetyl rest of, it's only going to go up to about 58 because I want to stay kind of within the temperature range of the yeast so we don't get any weird stuff going on. But that's where we're at.
And here we have the Oktoberfest. It is not a bad looking beer. So what happened with the steam condenser lid is I had done a boil off test with just water, and it boiled off a gallon, which is what I normally got with the lid off. And I, anecdotally seen, hey, everybody gets from same boil off rate without the lid to vastly different. Doing it with an actual beer, the boil off rate was a lot less than my test with just water. My guesstimation, it was probably more like half a gallon, but with the geyser, I lost some beer. I ended up with closer to 6 gallons or so going into the fermenter, and I usually do 5.5. So good guesstimate, and what I'm going to try next time is I'm going to assume half gallon boil off instead of a full gallon, and that will probably get me in better shape. Now, what I mean by better shape, I should have led with that, is I was shooting for a gravity of 1056 as my original gravity. And I had, my previous beers styled in pretty close. I'm not sure I ever quite nail it, but it's pretty darn close. In this case, because of the difference in the boil off rate, I wound up getting an original gravity of 1048 because, of course, more volume of liquid means it's not as, the gravity's going to be lower. I could have kept boiling, but given how that brew day was going, I was like, we're going to go with whatever it winds up being. The fermentation went pretty well. It did get down to 1010. I was shooting for, I think, 1009 was the original Brewfather estimate, so that's pretty close. But instead of getting an ABV of 6.2, it's 5%. Obviously, if your gravity is different, using the same amount of hops, that can throw stuff out of whack a little bit. Color's not going to be, it's not going to be quite as dark, and the mouthfeel is going to be a little bit thinner, is what I'm predicting. I've just had a couple of small tastes of this, so I haven't really had quite a lot of it. So, but let's just kind of go through this. So, clarity-wise, I did use silifine in this, and that seemed to work really well. I prefer that to gelatin, at least from the first use of it. it's just a lot easier to use. I think it's the second time I've used Silifine. It does a good job. So that is a pretty darn clear beer. You can probably see my hand behind it. The color, I don't hate it. It's kind of a nice orangey. It's probably a little bit lighter in color than I would have liked it to be, but it's not a bad looking beer. Head retention, as I've been talking, has gone down a little bit, but there's, I don't know, I probably tip it up and spill, but there's a good cap on there that's hanging around, so that's decent. Happy with that. Let's do the aroma. Okay, so on the nose, it is pretty malty. I do get some bready notes. Let me swirl this a little bit if I can without making a mess here. And some hops, which I think, depending on the Oktoberfest that you get, is not necessarily a bad thing, but isn't, the prominent feature of this type of beer. But mostly it's malty. It smells like a nice malty beer. Talking about appearance a little bit already. Let's just give this a taste. Again, bearing in mind this is a 5% beer instead of close or a little over 6, but I use the same amount of hops, so we'll see how this all balances out. It's actually not bad. I had some early tests of it before it had been in the keg quite as long. It's not bad. It is, I would say it's out of balance simply because it doesn't have, the mouthfeel needs to be bigger and the malt needs to be more forward. And it finishes a little bit more bitter, and it's a little bit out of balance with the hops because of the lower original gravity. But generally speaking, not a bad beer. I'd say if I'd probably be really happy with it if I had hit my numbers a little bit better given the first use of the steam condenser lid. But overall, this is not bad. I think it's just, stuff happens in the brew day. This is definitely not a dumper. It's a pretty decent beer. It just comes off like more of a hoppy amber ale, I guess I'd say, than it does an actual Oktoberfest. It lacks that kind of oomph you get from a bigger, more malty beer. Doesn't have, some Oktoberfest, for me anyway, you get a little bit of that warming. It's not, necessarily like a, big imperial stout or anything, but you get a little bit more of that alcohol warming because it drinks a little bit heavier. And this one does not drink like I would expect an Oktoberfest would. But, overall, not bad. I will probably not drink the whole 5-gallon pint or 5-gallon keg before I dump it, but I will probably have a few of these before I need to make room for other things. So I think I'll just leave it there. This, it didn't turn out how I wanted, but I learned some things. We'll do better. I think the next beer I have on deck is my take on a pumpkin beer. That'll be interesting because if you've seen my video, I think I've done at least 1 or 2 about pumpkin beers. I generally hate pumpkin beers, but I've tried to come up with an approach that I think I will like. And I thought it was a brilliant idea, but then I saw other people did it first, so it's verified, if not totally original. And we'll see how this steam condenser lid works on that batch. I think that'll probably be, well, actually, the next videos I have coming out I'm gonna start doing I'm really excited about this, start doing the BrewTubers experiment tastings of the American Amber Ale with different specialty malts for everybody, and I think there's 11 of them. So that's gonna be really fun to go through those and get a sense of how the specialty malts that everybody used work in the context of an American Amber. So be looking out for those. Be looking out for the pumpkin beer, and I got some plans for some winter beers that I'm pretty excited about as well. So until then, cheers. I'm gonna go have this Oktoberfest. I'll finish this one because it's not a bad beer. Not what I wanted to make, but that's okay. You'll always learn something. And I think I'll leave it there, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.